I could have chosen the outside view of planes taken off or this gorgeous inside of Magnum Coffee Roastery, but instead, when I pulled up and saw this alien, I knew I had to sketch the front of the store. So here I am with my sketchbook on my lap, facing the store and starting the sketch. I started with a pencil sketch and I went pretty detailed on this pencil sketch, more than I usually do. I'm really trying to get as detailed as possible in the drawing stage so that I can come back in the inking stage and really make corrections. So I was focusing on accuracy here. And this alien is right above my head. I basically had to look way up in order to see it. And I was hoping that I could get a dramatic perspective to my sketch, but it turns out I didn't. I sort of flattened it all in my head. So even though I was trying to get dramatic perspective on that alien, it looks like it normally would be. Here I am sketching in my friends. Now notice when I do a pencil sketch, I always start from back and work forward. I try to get in the bigger shapes, and they tend to be the ones further away from me. So there's my knee and my coffee. And now here I am going in with a pen, and I chose a size 5 fine liner. I grabbed a 5, a 3, and a 1. So I'm going to do the foreground in a size 5, that's the thickest of the pen weights, the midground in the size 3, and then the background, which in this case is the alien and the storefront, in size 1. The midground are my friends and the table. So it's just a little bit of the foreground here, my knee, my sketchbook, my coffee, and the bench my coffee was sitting on. There were a couple of other people with us, but for simplicity, I just wanted to sketch 2 of my friends that were also sketching. My one friend, her husband, is sitting actually directly in front of me, but rather than include him in the sketch, I gave him his piece. I figured if you're there sketching, you're fair game. If you're just there with your spouse that's sketching, well, I'll keep you out of my sketches. So here I am, inking my friend. I don't think either of these sketches is particularly close to the friend that I was drawing. So as always, whenever I sketch people in real life, I apologize. If they think they look weird or funny, I assure you it's my drawing and not how you actually look. But this drawing is free practice that I do every Monday morning has helped me develop a sense for what makes someone's likeness. So in this case, she was wearing this very distinctive plaid vest type shirt. So I wanted to get that in. And her hair is pretty close to what it winds up looking eventually. It's just that her face doesn't look anything like her face, other than she wears glasses, but I don't even think I got her glasses shape correct. So there's lots of artistic license happening here. My other friend Rhonda winds up looking kind of like a blob, and she left before I did the watercolor stage, so I forgot what colors she was wearing, and I think that I did it justice in the end, but to this moment I couldn't tell you what color her shirt was. I think I got her hair right. I think that's the part about Rhonda, my friend that I'm drawing, that I did well in this case, is her hair looks pretty accurate. The rest of it, not so much. And I don't think my other friend looks like her at all. So now this area with my 2 friends is the last of the midground, so I'm going to put this pen away and take out the size 1 pen for the rest of the drawing. Now notice when I did the drawing, I started from the back and then ended forward, and when I do the inking, I use the exact opposite process. I start with the things that are right in the front. That way, if I decide at that time that I want to add, let's say I wanted to add their coffee cups and other things that were on the table, I could have done that at that time before I put the table in, so that I wouldn't have table lines going through the items on the table. So when it's time to do the inking part, I really try to do what my eyes see first and move backwards from there. And then when it's time to get the color on, I should do exactly the reverse again. Start with a great big wash over the background and then move forward in and darker in color as I fill in the sketch. I wind up not doing that in this case, which is why I say I should. Instead, I fell into one of my very bad habits, which is, oh, I really like this thing, I can't wait to color it, so that's what I start with. So when I was inking right here, I was pretty off. I'm correcting my size and my shape of everything to the best that I can in the inking process. This center section, I think I could have left it out. It's actually above me, and it doesn't look like that because I got the perspective all wrong during the sketch, so it doesn't really look like I'm looking up. I don't get that kind of forced third 3-point perspective where I'm looking up and everything is foreshortened. Instead, it just looks like I'm looking directly at the building. So I'm translating what I actually see in my mind rather than showing you what I see with my eyes. So that's why the perspective didn't work. However, I really, really like this sketch, and this little guy made me really happy while I was drawing him. I think the inking process might be my favorite part of creating. It is really fun to see the ink strokes go in, to make the corrections. I think that I got his mouth so beautifully drawn. I'm really happy with that one little moment in just the way his mouth is held there. It makes me happy. Now the coloring of this that I'm about to get into is complicated because in reality this is a black banner and all of these graphics are white. There's a lot of white pieces within the alien and the coffee cup there, but it's on a black background. And then I open up my watercolor case and see that I have a lot of green sitting there on my palette. So I really like the alien. I think he's cute. I want to start in immediately with green. So that's what I do. I mix a green color mostly from what's in my palette. It's a very, very pale color. And I just start in on the alien. I should have put a gray color over the whole background there. That's really what I'm trying to do from a watercolor perspective. I'm not a great watercolorist. So I treat it a little bit like I was just breaking out my Crayola crowns and put a layer of color down. I might as well have been doing that by the way I use watercolor. I rarely use any of the properties that make watercolor really unique. So what you're seeing here is me treating watercolor like it were markers. And I want to get better about that. I just seem to get distracted and forget what I'm doing. So it never quite works the way I want it to. So here I am going into the background, and then I make another mistake in not taking care when I went over that star, that little shooting star on the left is white. It's all white, and I wiped right over it with that gray. I it looks like I'm using my largest brush here, but I want to get a square shaped watercolor travel brush because I think that would really help with the big washes. If I get in the habit of starting my sketches with a big square brush rather than this round one, I think that will put me in the right mindset to remember that my first layer should be some really light watery washes to get a cohesive feel across the sketch. I should have done the whole thing in a light blue because it was a very cool scene. Everything is in shadow and shade. See, you can see me here kind of struggling with the brush because it's a round brush and not really giving me the coverage that I need. So here I am putting some of my favorite buff titanium mixed with a little of that gray color to make it look a little shady to do this section here, which is really an underhanging or overhanging. I'm under it. And those are lights. So I just put in a little bit of white there for the lights. I didn't spend a lot of time or thought on that. I was mostly just sad that I had included it in the sketch. I should have taken artistic license and made the storefront a little bigger and just left that out. So I'm doing it again. When I get to the bottom of the sketch, I should have done a wash over the whole thing, and instead I start in with a pointy little brush and start with details. So again, I'm using watercolor paints like they were a marker here. And I remember some of these words are white and I wanted to keep them white. Well, I have a white crayon with me at all times. So I could have gone over that area with crayon, which would have created a wax resist so that it wouldn't pick up the color. Or I could have gone over with white ink that I bring with me and have with me at all times, because it is bleed proof white, which means I can put it over watercolor and the watercolor won't activate and turn the white into a pale version of that color, which happens with white watercolor and with gouache, but it doesn't happen with this ink. So I always have some with me. I very easily could have used that to go back in over the white parts that I wanted to be white. Instead, I just decide that I'm gonna start painting. Although I really am happy when I start what I'm doing right here, because I decide off the cuff that I'm going to paint my reflection. So that is my reflection in the window that I'm painting right now. And there's my phone on the overhead camera holder. And then I go back to painting in the window. Once I've got me in there, I'm letting me dry, and then I'll go over with that gray, and it will push me back into the reflection. So I'm really happy about that. I make this mistake here, and I went straight down with the color rather than continue the floor behind them. So visually I had pushed them up or the floor back or something. I don't know exactly what I did. But then they were close to that glass, so that side, my friend on the right is correct. My friend on the left, I shouldn't be able to see the bottom of the storefront in front of her, so I shortened the store so that I could get the whole thing in. But then I didn't fix it on the side in the middle, so it looks weird to me, and I'm sure you never would have noticed it if I hadn't said something. Here I'm back into buff titanium to do the sidewalk in front of me. And so far this sketch is pretty gray and green and titanium. It's not very exciting, but it's about to be. There's a toucan in front of us. So here I am dipping into the red, getting ready to paint that toucan beak. This is the official mascot, I guess, of Magnum Coffee Roastery Cafe and Store. And I don't know where the alien came from. I talked to the girl behind the counter and she had no idea what the alien was for. The rest of the store follows with the toucan and coffee beans and other things that you would associate with coffee, but the alien came out of nowhere. So I mixed this orange. I don't keep one on my palette. I always mix it out of yellow and pink, opera pink, maybe a little red. So that's how I got to this orange. And then I add a little more yellow to get the lightest one at the top. Now all three of these colors are wet. So I'm technically doing a kind of wet into wet technique right here and using one of the properties of the watercolor, basically hoping that that red would blend into the orange and the yellow and it would give me a kind of seamless and nice gradation there. Ordinarily, I'd be telling you all about the food that I had at my location, but I didn't eat. And although I did get a coffee and it's sitting in front of me, I think I drank maybe a few sips of it. It was delicious, but once I started the process of sketching, I was really enjoying myself and didn't reach for the coffee very much. In fact, I edited very little downtime out of this video. I usually just take off the times when there's nothing happening on the screen, and that was very, very rare in this particular sketch. I'm also not really doing anything fancy in terms of technique, so here I am putting on black, here I am putting on gray, here I am putting on black in another place, here I am putting on a different shade of gray. So that's the kind of riveting commentary you're going to get from me today. I'm just using some generic greens here, whatever I had on the palette or handy, to fill in the greens of that coffee branch. I went to the same yellow-orange of the toucan to fill in the word entrance. And then the words above it, cafe and store, were in white, so I just leave them there. And there I go in with that yellow-orange, thinking that I remember that my friend's shirt was kind of a pink and yellow floral, so that's what I'm going for here. Just a pink and yellow floral. And then I'm mixing a little skin-ish tone to bring some skin tones in to my reflection and my friends. It's a very pale skin tone. We're all very pale, especially for being Nevadans. We're smart enough to stay out of the sun, I think. Got in some skin tones. Remember to add in a little pink to their cheeks. She was wearing sunglasses, so I got those in, and some drawings. I now see that I didn't put a paintbrush in my friend's hands, but I did get the plaid in on her shirt, so here's me painting plaid. And I go in for some brown to color her hair. And then mix a kind of neutral shade of brown to paint the table. There were slats on the table, so I'm just painting the slats. I'm not particularly going for accuracy here, just texture. And I am nearing the end because I'm in the front now. So rather than deal with what people's legs looked like under the table, it just all gets a shadow. I come back in to hide the mistake of painting over that star with making it yellow, and then adding a little white to the comet tail part, blending it in a little, which helped fix that mistake. I decided to leave the other things white as they were. Now I'm just looking around for small little places where I can improve the painting. What have I missed? What still needs work? Do I want to stop here? Do I want to keep pushing my colors? And I noticed that I missed the claws, so I went back in and put some paint over the claws and a little shadow in the flowers there. I dipped right into the black to get some color into his eyes. They were very black with white centers. I think I leave these centers on the greenish side though. And here I decided I really wanted to amp up the green in this alien. He was just way too pale, so I went in with a straight hooker's green, which is this beautiful bright brass primary, the green that you think of when you hear the word green. And I just love the color so much, and it's the perfect alien color, so I just gave him an all over coat of this green, which pretty much obliterated the first coat that I gave it, but that's okay. I don't think I left any of the highlights behind. He got a complete wash of this bright green over it. And there weren't any highlights. This is not a three-dimensional being. It is a 2D poster that was done in 3 colors, black, white, and green. So there really it really should be a flat color of green. It looks far more detailed and lifelike in my sketch than it does in actual real life. I increased the concentration of green, so I had to go back up through the face to blend it out a little bit. I should have used a bigger brush for all of this. I've got a tiny brush which I needed for the fingers, but I shouldn't be using for the rest of it. Overall, I am super happy with how this sketch turned out. I think he is so adorable. I could have gone further with all of my colors, added more shadows, but I was pretty happy with the end result at this point. And here was my inspiration. Next time I might sketch this barrel wall or this taste of the exotic wall on the inside. It's a really lovely cafe, and I will be sure to come back, paint some more, and maybe take some of that amazing coffee home. If you've made it this far in the video, you are definitely a bestie. Leave me a message in the comments and let me know if you are enjoying this format. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you can get great urban sketching videos as soon as they are released. And YouTube thinks that you're going to like this next video here.